Morning, everybody. Welcome to the January 9th meeting of the Rapid City Planning Commission. A few housekeeping items to begin with. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, we ask that you fill out a speaker request form over here and hand that to the secretary. We'll take those speaker request forms with the item number that you wish to speak to when we arrive at that item, and we'll take them in the order in which they are received. At this time, we'd ask that everyone that has a cell phone, tablet, or something else that goes ding in the night to set it to silent or turn it off. And if you have a call that you need to take, we ask you to step out into the hallway and not share that with the chamber. Items 1 through 16 are placed on the consent calendar and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, audience member for separate consideration at this time. Findings of the Planning Commission are recommendations to the City Council. City Council will make the final decision with the exception of the following items. Item 5, 13 PD 050. Item 6, 13 UR 022. Item 12, 13 PD 052. Item 13, previous one was item 12. Item 13, 13 PD 053. And item 14, 13 PD 055. The Rapid City Planning actions on these items are final unless a party appeals that decision in writing to the Rapid City Community Planning and Development Services Department by the close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Are there any items 1 through 16 on the consent item that people would like removed?
Items 7, 12, and 16.
12 and 16. Any commission member?
Items 8 and 10.
8 and 10. Any audience member? And item 2. Very little consent this morning, is there? Any audience member have anything besides items 2, 7, 8, 10, 12, or 16? Chair would look for a motion on those items, remaining items, with the exception of 2, 7, 8, 10, 12, and 16.
Motion to approve.
Tim? Motion by Tim, second by Linda. Any further discussion on the consent calendar? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pulled item 2 just because I wanted to make a note. This, in the staff report, Patsy has written that over the last, since the last base evaluation, we have made an increase of $86 million in assessed value. And I just wanted to note that since it started 10 years ago, that number is actually $105,900,000. And so it's one of the few tax increment districts that has made that much money. And without that tax increment district to extend Fifth Street, we probably would not have that today. I mean, development eventually would occur, but I don't think there's a developer who would be willing to put in Fifth Street from where it ended to Catron Boulevard. And so I just think that this is a good tax increment district, and I want people to realize that that's a lot of tax dollars that are going to be coming into the schools in the city and the county. And so I'm just glad it's paid off in 10 years, which is really good too. So
Originally that would have been a 20-year presentation.
Correct.
So it pays off in about half the time.
Yep.
Chair would look for a motion on item 2. Dennis. Linda. Further discussion on item number 2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item number 7. And I have a speaker request form for number 7, so Kip, after you've got your remarks, we'll take that.
Excuse me. Good morning.
Morning.
Item number 7 is 13 CA 017, an amendment to the comprehensive plan to revise the major street plan by realigning a proposed principal arterial street and a proposed collector street. As you can see here, this is in the area of Moon Meadows Drive, Sheridan Lake Road, and just to the east of Dunsmore Road. And this is the before and after map. Currently, the proposed principal arterial runs right up here, and the proposed collector goes there. The request is to shift this a little bit over to the east from this property here onto this property here, and just kind of change the alignment a little bit to the east. It varies in between 200 and 500 feet to the east of where it's currently proposed. That's the basics of it. If you have any questions, I can answer those. We also have Mr. Ham here. He's put in a speaker request form, and he would like to speak to this issue.
Leo Ham.
Kip, could you put the first map up there?
Absolutely. Would you like to draw on this?
I might, just a little.
Yeah, you just use this and draw wherever you want.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Leo Ham. I'm here representing the Ham family in regard to this situation. I am not here to speak against it per se, but I would like to fill the council in a little bit in regard to a couple of areas. First of all, I was aware by virtue of phone calls that people in the Red Rock development had notification for this situation, as well as my brother clear over there on the storage facility, a quarter of a mile away. And by virtue of that, I assumed that all of these folks, well, I guess I don't show you on here, huh? Along that Meadows got the notification as well.
You have to press really hard on
Oh, I have to press hard. Along this area here, I don't know how many landowners there is, but there's quite a bunch, and along here, and there, and of course, it would be along here, and then over here, and then it would probably include all of them along the north boundary of Wildwood. Now, to me, that's a little bit unnecessary, or a whole lot unnecessary, and when those folks are required to send out notifications for people to have knowledge and speak to this, it costs them about $6 a letter. So you can see that in this case there might have been 40 or 50 of those haven't been sent out, and really the only ones that are affected by this is our family, because we own the property on both sides of this proposal, on both sides of Sheridan Lake Road. Now, the other issue that, and you might want to check and see if there's a possibility, I can appreciate the need to notify people who possibly could be affected. But in this instance, there's a lot of people there that just generate a lot of concern that really don't have any feelings one way or the other. And I had several of them calling me and wanting to know what was going to happen. And I said, well, I'm amazed that you even had to get involved. Take a look at that and see if it's really necessary, because I think you've got so many feet requirement, but when you, like this is just one piece of property. I think it's listed at 100 and some acres, but our family owns, well, I think the family ranch situation is like 300 and some acres in the vicinity. And you can see then that would require a lot of landowners. And ironically, I never got one. My daughters did. I would point out that this area here is owned by my daughters, well, not quite like that, about like this. We wanted to give them 10 acres each, about, it was in the early 80s, and of course then we'd had to plat it, so we didn't want to plat it, so we ended up giving them 40, and it's none of their ground has ever been fenced out. It's still part of the ranch and run as one, and the kids own 75% of the family ranch now. Our effort was to get it on to the next generation. That in mind, the other part of this thing that I would like to speak to is that, well, Hanny, I remember him telling me when they brought this proposal to me to change, and you need to know that that is the third proposal that has been made in this regard. The first one came down, and it might be on some of your stuff, in the general vicinity of the first proposal, and then it came over and hooked up to this Kip Peak Road. Something like this. I guess it went over here like that. It came across two drainages, and if you're familiar with the area, right, well, it would be, no, not there, right about here, I've got a little barn. Not there, it's this damn thing don't go where I want it to. Go. Well, anyhow, when it went over to the Kip Peak Road, the county didn't particularly like that, and I didn't either. At that time, this piece of property here was owned, and that's the one that brought this about, by my mother. She never sold that 40 acres. She kept it back when she sold the ranch to the three of us back in the early 60s. But that did sell just a couple of years ago to the people who now make this request. And they, when they, at interim, the county came to me. Now, I don't know if you people have seen the map of the work that the county did to put the road into this general configuration, coming off of there like something like that. Now, I should back up a little bit and explain it. Over 40 years ago, I made a request of local government to run a fly line from basically this point and to hook up ultimately with Highway 44. Now that was before a lot of your Carriage Hills and Park Drive and a lot of those areas were developed anywhere close to where they are today. I thought it logical, and I made that request after the Moon Meadows development started to develop, and the county opened up what's now known as the Moon Meadows Road. And that was opened up over the objections of quite a few of us in that area, and a case was made and was lost in court that opened that road. When that road opened, then it appeared to me that it was only logical that we look for a kind of a beltway around the south of Rapid City, and that then ultimately should connect up to Highway 44. Now that's looking forward a lot further than most would, but you have to remember that I was born and raised on that ranch, and that there's only one logical place to get through there on that ridge coming off south of Carriage Hills. And that's where Dr. Eckridge and has his house now. That ridge is the only one. Now, if you've studied what the city's tried to do in relationship to coming up Red Rocks and those areas, you'll see that it hasn't been very successful. When you look now at the patterns of traffic on Sheridan Lake Road, you realize that something needs to be done. It isn't unusual for Sheridan Lake Road to back up clear past my place on a lot of days from Catherine Boulevard. Now it's 6/10 of a mile, I think, to my drive from Catherine Boulevard, and a lot of times it'll go clear around Danger, what we call Danger Curve, on a given morning between, what is it, about 7:15 to 8 o'clock or in there someplace. It'll back up over half a mile on a regular basis. The Catherine Boulevard intersection, I think, was obsolete the day it was built. And now we've seen a lot of mistakes being made that haven't been corrected over the years in regard to where roads should be and where they should be built with the least expense and the least maintenance. And usually it's where wind will take them off, blow them off, and things like that. Now, this brings me to this schematic. As you can see here, they just run it up and kill it there. And while we're doing this, I would like to see this road. When they put Shooting Star Trail in, the city put that in and they built it. And I allowed the annexation of 60 acres across there so that they could annex the Red Rocks. And the city made me a deal that got screwed up by numerous individuals, but I was the one that took it in the shorts. And it cost me $30,000 roughly to get that section line opened back up. And the Supreme Court has opened it up, and that should be one of the roads that, amongst others, that allow traffic from this whole area ultimately, and including going clear over into the Borgmeyer area, has to get down off of there somehow. And so in regard to this, though, where it goes through our place and my daughter's land, I'd like to see this thing, instead of just marking a point that goes up there, I would like to have it be in some type of a proximity that comes to a point over here where I allowed the city to take a heck of a lot of dirt to make that Shooting Star Trail a livable, ideal road. And the city then expanded that thing from, I asked for 34-foot right-of-way. They were putting that 16-inch water line in there. I said, I think it would be wise to put that, rough that road in, what I thought was the Shooting Star Trail, and in such a configuration that you would approve the road on it later. And the council at that time, including all your mayors, about 3 of them, were sitting there and made the deal with me, and did then agree to, they said I couldn't have 34 foot, but they'd build at 28. I said, that's fine, just so we get that water line in there so that we don't have to lower it to put a road on it. So that's what happened. And when they did that, they needed dirt to fill a couple of draws over there, and I let them take it off in this area. And so actually there's approach off of the Shooting Star Road that has already been built heading to the south. So this road here, wherever it goes, should meet up with that. And it's off of the crest of the hill so that it'll make available a lot of dirt if it's needed for a future development in there. Now, the possibility of that.
Mr. Ham,
Yes.
if I may, appreciate the history, because I've sat here through this street discussion before.
Have you?
Been here a long time. Not all of them as many as you've been, but I have. The issue before us, which you mentioned when you started, was whether the proposed move of the road on that piece, which I presume is your property, it goes through your property there on the south side of Sheridan Lake?
Yes,
That's
in this
on your
vicinity
property.
here, yes.
And so the measure that is before us is whether the move inside that property is what we're talking about this morning. With regard to those connections that you've made in the history, that's just not in what we're doing today. You said that you weren't generally opposed to it, but is that area west is what you'd like to see?
Well, John, I appreciate what you're coming from, and I'll try to terminate this very soon. When you, though, put this mark on the road, this brown mark, or in there, and that's part of your consideration today as I understand it, and that's why all these people over here were notified, I would like to have you folks cause this to be some kind of a configuration like this or something, so that this don't stop there, and it shows the intent to go up to the Shooting Star Trail. Because this changes, this here brown line on the north side of Sheridan Lake is part of your consideration today also, as I understand it. Because you are changing it from where it was coming out over here, you now are changing it to where the brown line is. So I think that from my perspective, while you're doing it, just as well draw that line. Now I understand that that can be changed. At least that's what I've been told by staff. And I had an extensive discussion, appreciatively so, from Brett Limbaugh and these lads just last week. But I've thought about it a lot of time since, and that's what causes me to get up and say, why don't you just make that line come over to where that has already been designed coming off of Shooting Star, which indicates you have an intention then of putting a road through there perhaps someday. And we're not ready for it until girls maybe sell it or something, but that, John, is why I bring that up. I will terminate with that, and if anyone have any questions, I thank you for your patience, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Thanks for coming down and taking us through that, Leo. Appreciate
You
that.
can have that if you'd like. That's
Anybody have a question of Leo while he's up there? I do have some questions for staff. I understand today what we're working on is the move principally on the south side. And from earlier discussions, I recall when we've been talking about the street plan in this area, there are some things that, with regard to the Ham property and those connections to the north, which we're just not dealing with today.
Correct.
What we're trying to do is get south of that moved. But I do have one question, Kip, on the connection to the crossroad at Sheridan Lake there. That street will be a collector?
Which street are you
The
discussing?
proposed brown line, is that going to be a collector?
This section here is a proposed principal arterial, and then on the south side of Sheridan Lake Road, and then as it continues north of Sheridan Lake Road, it drops down to a collector status.
With regard to traffic on there that Mr. Ham mentioned, I've been in that backup traffic a time or two, not that I live in that area, but I've been in that. Is where that line crosses, has any consideration be given to how you're going to control traffic? Is that a stop sign, signalized intersection, or is the signalized intersection proposed for on west at Dunsmore?
The distance is sufficient that it could be signalized if warrants were ever met for that. Originally, it'd probably be, as it's first constructed, a stop-controlled intersection, similar to what Dunsmore is now, but as traffic increases and the warrants are met, then it could become signalized at some point in the future.
If it moved west as to where Mr. Ham had indicated that he thought maybe the crossing would be a straighter alignment if it goes up that right-of-way, would the distance still qualify later in the warrant area for control at that intersection?
Sure, Mr. Ham was talking about maybe even a little farther east
No,
here.
I'm sorry. I thought he said west.
No, a little farther to the east here, which would certainly give that a little more.
Okay.
We've met with Mr. Ham, we've discussed the location of this, and you know, that may change by 20, 30, 40 feet, depending on
Okay.
engineering.
Got it.
When we also talked with him, you know, the alignment of this roadway here, currently it stands like this, and it kind of comes back over, ties up to another collector to the north. We just discussed with Mr. Ham that this is all his property and his family's property, and at such time as that develops, the location of that road could certainly be changed without.
That's not part of our consideration today.
No, not today.
And then one last thing that I'd like to address is, Leo mentioned the distance for the, I'm just curious as, what is the distance in notification on this?
It's generally 250 feet and to either side of this proposed alignment. Is that correct, Andrea? Yes.
We met that standard and
Yes.
kind of included a lot of folks then. Probably didn't have it, but I,
John, if I just may, see, that even his brown line is probably 300 feet from the meadows, from the development there to the west. But in regard to this thing, we don't know what we want yet even, and we've lived there all our lives, and until you do a land plan on it, somebody buys it, I doubt it, I'll be involved in that, but my daughter sure will. They're gonna make some serious study of that, which will determine where best some of that road should ultimately go. And we need the flexibility to do that, but by just dead stoning it there implies that you don't know what the heck you want to do, and I think that's inappropriate.
it may be inappropriate, but that's what came forward today, so we'll see what we do with this. I do agree with one thing, is we don't know what we're going to do, and I suggest we're probably going to see this plan again in the future.
Mr. Chair, that brown line is only meant to depict the part that was being relocated. It's not to say that the major street plan shows that that connection dead ends. And maybe if Kip could just show you that alignment and that connection. The other thing I wanted to remind you of is that the major street plan only identifies collector and arterial streets. As that land plan comes forward, there'll be other local and lane place streets that will provide other road connectivity through any future land use.
Sure, and as you can see on the map here, current alignment of this collector road is right here. The proposed alignment shifts it a little bit over to the east, and that's what that brown line shows. And this is that chunk of the brown line that shows on the previous. It does continue further on to the north, but we only show the brown line for the part that's being realigned.
Okay.
So it does continue on up to the north, eventually tying up into Carriage Hills Drive.
Very good. I have a light up for Commissioner Eric Braun.
This is just an item I need to abstain from due to a relationship with the agent.
And any other questions on this matter?
I move approval.
Motion by Dennis, second by Steve. Approval. Before there is any possible discussion, take this opportunity to welcome Walt Swan Jr. to the commission as the second alternate. We hope that you'll find service on here as enjoyable. And with Commissioner Braun's recusal on this vote, our first alternate will be voting as part of the deal. The motion is to approve as staff recommended in there. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Uh, 10, isn't it? Item 10? I'm sorry, item 8.
I believe that Eric pulled that so he could abstain from voting.
Yep, read my mind. Another one where I'm related to the agent. Same with 10.
Same with 10, so you want to take them together, items 8 and 10. Chair would look for a motion on items 8 and 10. So Steve, you are the motion maker, and the second is Karen. Further discussion on 8 or 10? Eric abstains. Brett, you'll be voting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 8 and 10 are approved. 12.
Item number 12 is an initial plan development overlay to construct an apartment complex. This is located out at the intersection of Bernice Street and Neal Street. Staff erred in providing them with an incorrect legal notification for the letters to be mailed. So this item needs to be continued to your January 23rd meeting, and we will be resending those notices. So with your assistance, we'd like this item continued to January 23rd.
Motion by Steve, second by
Second.
Linda. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. 16.
Item 16 is a preliminary subdivision plan. This is a part of the Orchard Meadows development that we see out along Highway 44. It's the Wally Byam site. You had previously approved a Phase 1 development for this, creating 3 commercial lots, and final plat approval has gone forward on that, and we're looking forward to some commercial development up against Highway 44. The application before you today is for phases, for additional phases of the development, and it's going to include 97 acres, creating 148 lots and 10 larger tracts. We are on board with all of the stipulations of approval that would be typical of a preliminary subdivision plan. It's anticipated that due to the city's utility plan that a sewer trunk main will be extended through the property in the future, and it'll, for the most part, follow a drainage way on the eastern side of the property. Our original stipulation had identified that with the next phase that easement be secured for that future sewer trunk main. However, that may be a little more difficult to pinpoint at that stage. So the applicant has requested, and we've concurred, to revise that stipulation. You'll see it as a handout on the dais before you today. It's item number 16, and if we go to stipulation number 6, we're requesting that it be changed as shown in bold, that upon submittal of a development engineering plan application for any future phase, a preliminary potential easement corridor for the city's future sewer trunk main shall be identified, and that the owners shall work with the City of Rapid City staff to secure any potential easements. And we feel that meets our needs, and we'll continue to just work with them for the specific location. So with that, we are recommending that this item be continued with the 13 stipulations as identified in the revised handout.
Motion by Steve, second by Tim, to approve with the revised stipulation. And are we approving this today, or did I hear you say continued?
Approve.
This one is to approve. Just thought my old ears were going crazy. Eric?
Another one I have to abstain from.
Well,
Lionsgate.
Eric, okay, we'll let you do that. Brett, you're up. Further discussion, we have a motion, second. No discussion, no lights. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That takes us to the regular agenda. Before we start the regular agenda, just a comment. We see the preliminary plats now, correct? That's what we see. We don't see anything after that. I just want to take this moment to recommend to all of you that the Lee study recommendation is back, and I think it was sent to all of you, or you can find it online. There are numerous proposals in there with regard to assisting the staff in being able to move developer plans through. And I think great efficiencies, more helpful to the people that come to develop. And I think we'll have a better way of approving development going forward. On the other hand, there are numerous provisions in there where variances are granted, and I saw one item, I believe, where even the preliminary plat won't be coming forward to us. My point to the council, and Amanda, sorry, you were not there the other night, so I'll just repeat my remark, is that although I favor many of the recommendations that they have, because I think it just makes the whole process more efficient. It serves those people that are trying to build in our community. But I want to make sure that as we change these, the appropriate public hearing is still preserved before the commission. Many of the recommendations have appealed to staff work, mostly to the council, I think. And this is still the place that neighbors and the rest of the community come to comment, and that is the public hearing, because all of you can't talk to them. You're not political. You're appointees. And I believe that's a valuable service to the community, that they have a place where they can go and air their concerns, thoughts on any particular item. So I thought I'd remembered, and I didn't bring my Lee plan, and I saw him recommend the preliminary plat goes out. We don't see them anymore. Maybe we don't need to see them. We didn't even discuss the last one, but I think we have in previous. We've seen that before. So just those comments, and I hope the rest of the commission will take a look at that report and see what you're in support of. I'd pretty much in support of the entire report. I think he did a great job. Vicki?
Mr. Chair, you are correct that the study does identify that platting should be all administrative and that no part of it should go before the Planning Commission and the Council. Please note that there's no legal notification for a plat today, nor has there ever been in the city. Technically, if they meet all the subdivision improvements and the underlying zoning supports it, you really don't have the legal grounds to deny them anyway. In the past, we would have neighbors that would show up and have concerns with additional development in their area when the exemption from improvements required a variance and letters went out. But that got changed in 2012. So now there are exceptions. There's no notification for that. And as you've seen, the audience has gotten smaller. because of that. They're not noticed for exceptions either. Those are appealed to council, and you will see the applicant show up. That practice will continue. If they don't hit the requirements on the mark, they will have to go to council for that public input. One of the other things the Lee study did identify, though, is something called conditional zoning. And that is really going to put a big task upon the Planning Commission. You folks have done a very good job taking testimony from both applicants and neighbors and trying to mitigate and facilitate issues in the middle of a meeting. And conditional zoning will put that task upon you, where in fact you will, at these meetings, be attaching stipulations to rezones.
I certainly hope that the conditional zoning, which is not very clear, and the appendix item didn't really help me very much, this is another way of the use or the conditional use didn't meet it, so it's a spot zone, as we call them locally. But it tightens up so that it's not per se spot zoning, but it carves out a piece in a zoning area, and you get a conditional zoning. And I'll be anxious to see what is proposed on that. I'm not as excited about that. I was excited, however, to see how he displayed uses and conditional uses, making it easier for us and people that come forward to the city to see what they can do in any particular zoning for use or conditional use. I thought that was very helpful. So I hope maybe that's something we can be using in the future. Also, the staff reports. I didn't understand the criticism. Maybe I've been looking at them so long I can read them, but he does suggest that the staff reports come forward with different information to assist the commission and the council. I'll be kind of anxious to see what you think about those.
And we'll be anxious to get your feedback to make sure that you're getting sufficient information.
Okay. Have we finished the blah, 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 blah? Item 17.
Item number 17 is 13 PD 36, a final plan development overlay to allow for the expansion of an existing mobile home park. This is for the Meadowlark mobile home estates located east of Lacrosse Street, north of East North Street. Pretty large established mobile home park. This item has been continued since the November 7th Planning Commission date in order to for the applicant to submit exceptions and get those approved for water system design. Those exceptions have been approved, and as such, the applicant is ready to move forward. There you can see the existing mobile home park, and let me get to the next slide. The applicant's proposing to expand in this area to the east. In addition, Planning Commission has previously seen an initial plan development for this expansion to the south, which was approved. The applicant is requesting some numerous exceptions to reduce established setbacks along East Adams, North Spruce Street, Meadowlark, and a little section on North Campbell Street down there, as well as rear yard setback, which abuts the railroad right-of-way. The dedicated right-of-way in those areas is excessive, and as such, staff is recommending that the exceptions be approved. In addition, the rear yard setback that abuts the railroad right-of-way, the railroad has submitted a letter in support of the reduction in the setback. As such, staff recommends that the final plan development be approved with the stipulations as noted in the staff report. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions? I did go up and drive that area when we had the neighboring thing before us before. And I just have a question on that east expansion with the setback. How close is that right up against the road? Right there, yes.
It's shown as a future street. However, it hasn't been built yet. The applicant is proposing to maintain a 25-foot setback from any right-of-way that would be dedicated in the future. The issue comes in this area to the south where there's a little jog in the existing right-of-way, and there are some existing units down there, as well as one of the proposed units, that until that right-of-way is dedicated for the future road, that the jog should probably go away and it won't be an issue anymore.
Yeah, and I'm not clear, that street is not built on the east side.
No, it is not.
So the navigation entry on the south is through that middle?
From here, yes.
Okay, got it. Any further questions? Chair, I'd look for a motion on item 17. Tim?
Second.
Second by Linda. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 18.
Item 18 is 13 PD 49, a final plan development overlay to construct a water reservoir. This item was continued from the previous planning commission meeting to allow the applicant to hold a neighborhood meeting. That neighborhood meeting was held on December 13th, and since then staff has received numerous public comments from the neighbors regarding certain issues, and in particular the fire flows, that how the proposed tower will increase fire flows, whether it's a necessity, as well as providing photo simulations of what the tower will look like on the property from around the neighborhood. So that we can get those, the applicant has concurred to continue this item to the January 23rd Planning Commission meeting.
I'm sorry, Jan and Steve, second. Discussion? Question? I've just seen and heard a lot of comment. Most people object to the height, construction of it. You mentioned that fire flows are the consideration that, at least you mentioned in continuation. Are fire flows a problem in Chapel?
The applicant has submitted a water report which shows that there are low fire flows within the Chapel Valley area, and it has been identified through a previous study that, well, it goes into a lot more information.
It's been to the fire department. So there is a report in that with regard to fire flows. Will you attach fire department's comments when it comes back to us? Continuation.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
This has been really a long-standing issue. It's been going on for probably at least 10 years or so. There's been a number of studies out there. I know CTEC did a pretty detailed review of that area and has established where the deficiencies lie. How this tank actually fits into solving some of those issues, I'm not really certain, because there was a significant number of improvements in their system that was recommended at the time of those early studies. But yes, to answer your question regarding the fire flow, there are areas within Chapel Valley that do not provide sufficient water for fire service protection.
Well, given past discussions on Chapel Valley and its safety in there, I think the commission would appreciate, since fire flows are now mentioned, I understand the community's concern about the design, but with regard to the safety in there, I wish that would be attached as part of this when it comes back to us. I don't have any other comments up. Motion is to continue. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item 19.
Item number 19 is 13 PD 51, a final plan development overlay to allow an on-sale liquor establishment and to allow storage in excess of 5,000 square feet. Property is located at 2202 Mount Rushmore Road. Let me take you through some slides. Property is located on the southeast corner of Mount Rushmore Road and Floorman Street. Mount Rushmore Road is identified as a arterial street, and Floorman Street is a collector on the city's major street plan. The applicant is requesting to allow, or within this is the former location of the Roadway Inn and restaurant. In the basement of this part of the structure has historically been a bar. However, the use has ceased to exist for a period of 1 year, and as such, the legal nonconforming on-sale use goes away, and in order to renew liquor licenses on the property, the applicant is requesting that final plan development to get the on-sale conditional use with an exception to reduce the parking on the property from 31 spaces to 25. And in order to get that lower parking generation, the applicant has indicated that the remainder of the structure and this area, which used to be the offices of the roadway inn, will be designated as storage. Any change in use from storage or expansion of the on-sale use would require a major amendment to the plan development. The applicant has indicated that there is an agreement for a parking agreement to use 6 additional spaces on the property to the east, and that there are some on-street parking located along Floorman Street. For these reasons, staff recommends that the exception to reduce the parking be approved.
Is that east or west on those 6 parking spaces?
To the east. It used to be the motel units for the roadway inn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got it. Eric Ron.
Another one I have to abstain from due to
Brett,
business
welcome back to the
relations.
batting cage. Do I have a motion on item 19? Tim? And second by Andy. How are you? Good morning. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Sure.
Opposed, same sign. I'm sorry. Hold up that vote. I have a motion and a second. Karen?
Thank you. I support the motion. I just had 2 quick questions. One, in the information that was provided, there was a floor plan, and it showed the second floor as the dining area. Is that an old floor plan? Okay.
Yes, it used to be the restaurant of the roadway inn,
Yeah.
and it's what's existing there. There may be plans to reopen it in the future. However, that would require a major amendment to the plan development.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure, because I knew you said storage, and then when I saw that floor plan, it was confusing. The second question is, and maybe Pat can answer that, the residents that were in the hotel or motel there, are they still in that motel part in the back?
Yes.
Okay. Just wondered.
Yes. Not
Thank-
the same people, but
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number discussion. Morning, Patsy.
Well, good morning. I have a couple things for you. First thing you'll note, to your right, there's a new face at the staff table. Her name is Sarah Hansel. She's our new planner, and she will be taking on special project activities similar to what Karen Bowman had done. She's doing historic preservation, eventually tax increment financing districts, ordinances, annexations, those kinds of things. But we'd like to welcome her. She is a locally grown planner, so we're happy to have her here. The next thing, all of you got notice for the upcoming comprehensive plan meetings. I have heard back from some of you I have not. So we'll start with Eric. How about you? Can you go Tuesday or Wednesday? You're not sure. You'll get back to me. Linda, Tuesday. Steve's gone. Tim? Okay. Andy? Next Tuesday? 10:45 to noon. And we do provide lunch.
I'm sorry, I didn't get do you send it to my
Work.
work email address? Okay.
I'll
Well,
send you another one.
Yeah, I'll be there. If it's Tuesday, I think I can be there.
Steve, how about you? Can you make it? The 15th, that's Wednesday. Jan. Brett. Okay. Walt. Okay. And I didn't have, your email was not set up when I sent those out, so
Where at?
It's in the first floor community room, and there is a link to the draft document. It's fairly thick, but it's got some great information in it. Amanda, how about you? Wednesday, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patsy, and I remind the commission that I've urged you to stay in touch with the comprehensive plan. It is the next 20-year roadmap for this community. A lot of useful information, but the part that relates to development was also brought into the Lee report, and the recommendations there for future growth are how this planning commission and current council should be taking a look at approvals for the next undetermined period of time. So please show up and kind of bring some of what you do here to that portion, and the rest of the comprehensive plan is, if nothing else, interesting. One last question. Did Vicki leave? Oh, there's Vicki. Do we have any training issues? Do we have a training calendar for this year? We have some.
We don't to date. We do have 2 new members of the Planning Commission. Brett and I have sat down and gone one-on-one, and I've offered that same with Walt. I think what we need to do is see what amendments are coming forward in short order, and once those are on the agenda, we need to sit down and all learn together what that's going to mean and how the process is going to change. That might be the best training at this time that
Well, I
I can
certainly
think of.
appreciate you've done the one-on-one with Brett. I think we ought to have some kind of standard for new appointees to spend that 1 hour of orientation or however long it takes so that they can understand some of the language going on here. Appreciate that. Is there any further comment, question, input this morning? If not, Chair, look for.
I got a real quick question.
Andy?
Is there a calendar for this year's meetings that is available? Who can I get that from? Andrea? Can I get that? Is it normally the second and fourth Thursday? Or the first and third?
First and third.
First and third, okay,
I
thank
know
you.
on your calendar on your computer you cannot do second and fourth because when you get the list, miss half the meetings, which is starting to look pretty desirable. So gives you a chance to sleep in. Appreciate the updated list. Motion to adjourn? Motion. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.